we have our another new episode, and we will discuss on Chat GPT. After a long time, we get our friends, Mr. Cart. Thank you for joining today's sessions, and Mr. James Eid. Thank you for joining World Talent Economy Forum. We have some improvement. We develop a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in emerging economy. We develop different projects. We develop different conference. Hopefully, our activities can give more success with the collaborations of today's speakers. First, I would like to give chance, Mr. Cart, what you want to discuss about ChatGPT. Beside that, in South Asia, uh, uh, Tesla car is very popular. Yes, I know it's off the topic, but if you want to relate some of your experience, I'm sure our audience will be really happy.
Yeah, this is a topic that I'm certainly not an expert on, but I have played around with Chat GPT and found it very useful and interesting. And I think it's a monumental step forward in artificial intelligence. But I think with all the artificial intelligence, I have an attitude of, well, let's see how this plays out. And whenever there's an advancement made, it's a big deal, but there's usually a lot of hype that comes with it. And although I do think in time, AI will continue to be more and more useful, I still think we're a long way off from getting anywhere near towards like a singularity. I still think we're also some time off before programs like Chat GPT can really start to increase productivity. Now, I mean, they can certainly help a human, but I don't see them replacing humans as quickly as the hype kind of does. I could be wrong. Certainly, that's just my opinion. I think of going to the library and getting out a card catalog and finding information and comparing that to internet search. The internet search made it much easier, much faster, more data that you can access. And it was a step forward, but still some things didn't change. And I just think Chat GPT is a advanced tool, and is for the time being is still going to require a human being to utilize it correctly. And it'll be interesting to see the real world examples of how it starts to increase productivity and help. There's been a lot of talk of writers being replaced by AI and artists, and I don't know how long that's going to take. I still think we're years off, but it's certainly going to start to decrease the opportunities for writers, I think. Although it may help them write their articles faster. The one thing I loved about Chat GPT at this point is it puts, when I start to do use it for research, it points me in a right direction if I'm looking at kind of a novel subject for me. But still, I'm not going to take Chat GPT as absolute truth. I'm going to look at multiple sources. And I find the information that Chat GPT provides, at least, and this is the free version. I haven't had access to the paid version. I haven't decided to pay for it yet. I could, but it doesn't entice me enough yet. Oh, pardon me. Let me just hang up this phone call.
It's okay. Hazards of live TV.
Yeah, I've got too many browsers open. My wife's in Thailand, so I'll have to call her back tomorrow. It's 11 p.m. there. But yeah, that's pretty much just, I find ChatGPT to be an interesting, large step. But I think for me, and this is thinking by analogy, not an expert, I think of the self-driving cars with Tesla. In 2016, 2017, this seemed like it was coming 2021, maybe even 2019. And here we are, 2023, and it's amazing, and it's safer than a human, but is it really ready to go out into the world and perform. You know, a lot of that has to do with regulations. It is safer than humans, but it just seems like there's that last, they call it the March of Nines, that last little bit of progress is just a huge mountain to overcome. So we'll see where AI goes. I think it's a long way off before it starts to take over humans, though. That'd be it for my beginning talk.
Okay. I'm not sure where our host went. Maybe I'll take a turn after you, Kurt. I liked what you said. I think it's, you mentioned a singularity, so I'll say it reminds me of quantum mechanics. You know, people, if it doesn't make you dizzy, you don't understand it. And I think we're that way with artificial intelligence right now, because you know, if you profess to be an expert, you probably aren't. The rules are changing and very rapidly. And it's kind of the wild, wild west. And the regulators, the people who would try to make regulation to help it along and to ease the transition into society, have no understanding of what they're doing. So we're a long way from making this a really beneficial boon, I think. And if you look at the internet, you know, the productivity really increased for about 10 years after 1995, and then it kind of stopped. And what we're finding out now is that people are using the internet and they're getting scattered. They're looking at multiple things. They're going from one thing to another. They're not really focusing. And so their productivity is actually not enhanced as much as it is damaged unless they are focused to begin with. And so we are raising a generation of people that have grown up with this internet, and they're having trouble keeping their focus on the project, like the people that grew up and didn't have all these things that are available just with one search or one click. And with Chat GPT, you know, my concerns are like, who is writing the algorithms that give you the answers that you search for? You know, who's in control? Who's behind it? Who's really telling us what we get for answers? You know, that is a dire possibility that you might be getting into a conformist way of thinking. Everyone might be led to the same conclusions, and they may not be socially just conclusions. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know how this is going to turn out. But there is a danger to that. So I think the downsides are that, you know, this might lead to a lack of focus. Like if you're a very focused writer and you're just using it to get information, you know, bully for you. But if you're growing up using this and to making you write instead of using your own creative juices to create a product, that's going to be very problematic. And we're going to get a lot of vanilla, a lot of oatmeal, and nothing else that has any taste, which is still a human quality. And one that can't be provided by artificial intelligence. You know, that you can't tell me it looks pretty. They don't know. You can't tell me it looks exotic. They don't know. They can give you a consensus. They can say, you know, 80% of the people found this to be X, Y, or Z. And that might be useful. But what if I'm in the 20%? It's of no use to me at all. But, you know, if they try to get everyone, you're not looking at a United States, you're looking for uniformity states, and uniformity is not desirability. We don't all want to think alike and act alike and all, you know, get the same sources of information. So these are dangers, but the pros may very well outweigh the cons, because, you know, this is, I think, progress, and I think progress is not going to be stopped. And so how do we take advantage of it, make it the best for the society, help it integrate it into a society and make it more just, more equal, and spread the equality around so that everybody has access to the same kinds of information, but not to the same type of thinking. Do we retain our individuality of thought? And do we retain our, and the writers are a great subject. You know, the writers right now are creative. And if they're not creative, they don't stay employed. But if everybody's using Chat GPT or some other AI source to create the same goop, where is that spark of creativity that separates what's a Seinfeld from a run-of-the-mill soap opera? I can see them doing soap operas, but I can't see them creating Seinfeld. Maybe I'm wrong. Sharif, are you there? Or Hugh Ching, you just showed up. Are you able to talk? We'd like to hear another perspective. Marco? All right, Kurt, do you have a... Oh, there, Marco. Okay, you go ahead, Marco. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Thanks. I came on really to see what I might learn that's new from and differentiated from what I've been reading in the papers, which I'm sure most of you have seen. Like most recently, there's an article about the lawyer. You see that this week? Avianca Air, his client was whacked by a tray. He wanted to, sue the airline. The airline tried to throw it out. Guy generated, 10 different arguments using AI, and ended off all the arguments were made up. It was a totally fictitious briefs that were provided for this argument, and boy, did the judge give it to this guy, and he put himself at the mercy of the court apologizing, But I personally think it's going to get much better over time. I think this lawyer made a huge mistake by not double checking his work. There's a Sirius station that, being middle-aged or approaching elderly age, I'm in my 60s now, that I started listening to on Sirius, which is called Doctors. I don't know if you know the station, but it's a Sirius. It's broadcast by physicians at New York Langone Medical Center in New York City. And every time I turn it on, they're on a different subject. And one of the subjects I listened to were these doctors talking about AI and what their opinion of AI is. They like it or they don't like it. And the takeaway was they like it as a tool. It helps them having a second pair of eyes, for lack of a better description. And they can double check. And they did say that they used it for a particular case. And they looked at all the precedences that had been set medically and realized there were a couple that were tossed in there that they double checked, and they were totally fictitious, but much of it was real. So they feel positive about it as being an effective tool going forward to help people in the medical field. You've seen what's happened to BuzzFeed, I guess, in New York. I mean, they laid off a whole bunch of people, and they're creating a lot of Chat GPT generated content for their news stories, because there's a lot of things that it can be used for already, and it is being used for. It's moving very, very quickly. I mean, I've tooled around with both Bard and with Chat GPT for just little fun projects to see what I come up with. And for instance, a close friend of mine's son, who I'm also good friends with, just went before a co-op board. He got accepted terms. The board needed reference letters. So his mom said, "Hey, call Marco. He's good at writing those kinds of things." So he hit me up. I said, "Sure, I'll do a reference letter for the board to get you approved on this co-op in New York, up in Westchester County." And I quickly, just for kicks, went into Chat GPT, wrote 2 or 3 different lines about the couple that were buying it. Boom, within 2 minutes or less, whatever it is, they created a reference letter. And it wasn't entirely correct. It misconstrued, but I immediately texted it to him and told him I used Chat GPT for this. And he had no problem with that. And he says, but I don't want to be on the co-op board. I said, yeah, I said, that's a thankless job. I know they kind of picked up the information a little bit wrong, but I did a quick edit of the reference letter and shot it back to him. The whole thing was done in 15 minutes. I'm sure I could have written my own reference letter. I've done it many times before. But why not use the tool? Save yourself time. It's not that important a thing going forward for me. So you got to pick and choose what you're going to use it for. And right now, it's totally in its nascency. We're just seeing the beginning of it all, like we did with many other technologies over the last 4 decades of our adult life. I just find it exciting, and it's funny. I've got some peers that I speak to that said, "Hey, have you tooled around with it?" And they're like, "I have no interest in doing this. I'm not getting involved. I already had to learn this and learn this technology, from an answering machine to dealing with 3 different remote controls to operate your TV." He says, "I'm not doing this one." I said, "Okay, I like to keep up with this stuff. I'm going to do it." Just like people didn't go on to Facebook initially. I got on because I had kids. And I figured, hey, I can monitor what's going on here. Then it ends off kids hate Facebook, and it's all us adults that are still hanging in there if we're not entirely on Instagram yet or Snapchat. But Facebook is still there, although I've been limiting my time to it like a mature adult at this point.
Yeah, good for you, Mark. But you brought up the idea that there's some inconsistencies in there that you have to go back and correct. And do you think that's going to improve over time, or do you think that we're constantly going to have to be vigilant in the materials that we work with, and always making sure that things aren't just made up, like in the lawyer example?
Well, both, I guess. I certainly think it will improve over time. But secondarily, I think you'd be a fool not to, double check your work. I don't think I'd be wanting to write a 500-page, thousands of words, dissertation with it, But for certain things, Also, as you well know, the AI that's available to us in the free version only goes back, up to the last 2 years. It doesn't include. For one reason, it's free, and the other one is they're still double checking their own facts. And but I think someone else had said something about the facts and kind of what was it, the conformity issue with it. But I think you can slant it any way you want to get the information. So there's always a workaround. I mean, my son sent me an article. He did this bio, sent it to me. Sharif knows my son. In fact, my son Brent Elman introduced me to Sharif 3 years ago. And he, out of the blue, sent me this kind of a bio about me. For what reason, I don't know. And I read it, and I said, "You didn't write this, did you?" And it talked about my history professionally, this and that. He says, "No, he used Chat GPT," but it was obvious to me. But he also did it specifically for a purpose. He wrote it from the perspective of not him writing it, but he said, make believe Donald Trump had written this article about Marco Ellman. So you could see the way he complimented certain things I did by repeating himself over and over again and using very, simplistic adjectives. So there's fun use for it out there too. Sharif, how are you? You'll have to unmute yourself so we can hear from you.
Yes. Mr. Markelman, thank you. Thank you for joining. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm well.
Thank you.
And my friend Peter joined me here too. He's listening. He's been around you before also and knows your work.
Okay, excellent. Professor Ching, what you want to discuss about Chat GPT?
I have many students who send me all the newest development in ChatGPT. This morning, I guess Alderman came out and said that we need to regulate ChatGPT. Okay, my view is, we go back to last talk. We talk about value. You cannot regulate if you do not understand value. See, so so what I really should do after looking over all these things about ChatGPT, what I really should do is I should stop thinking myself as a teacher of somebody from Bangladesh. Okay, I should just speak for my own work, which is pole science. Okay, now I think the first people who come to recognize pole science was philosophers. Okay, some journal they allow me to publish anything I say, as long as my name is on it. And then comes mathematicians. Okay, I send something to my students, send something to this committee, all a Nobel Prize, which is considered the Nobel Prize for mathematics. And they couldn't understand us initially. Now they understood us, and they are spreading the words all over mathematicians. And because of that, I think recently they gave me, invited me to join the who's who. I was on who's who among Asian Americans, but now it's really the mainstream who's who. And I think mathematicians will start to get into this. Okay, mathematicians, they are rather isolated. They don't deal with society. So they are a group of people by themselves. And I would say as a group, they are the most intelligent. So come back to Chat GPT as an example. Okay, first, it does not have valuation. So all these people, they want to, Hinton also want to regulate. Elon Musk, all these people with money, they also want to regulate. How do you regulate? You don't know how to determine value. There's no way to regulate. So there's a major difference between pole science and the current science. The first is valuation. Second is complete automation. Okay, today Chat GPT is written based on Python mostly, but it's partially automated software, not complete automated software. The third is tolerance. Okay, we are the people who start fuzzy logic, and we think things need tolerance. Okay, fuzzy logic is with finite tolerance, and the exact logic is with zero tolerance. So this is for survival. Okay, it's really the foundation. It should be the new foundation of knowledge. Okay, the word that they relate science, current Chat GPT and pole science is the word generative. Okay, once it becomes generative, it can be very dangerous. Okay, it's going everywhere. It generates things. The most clear indication personally is that I'm very open. I'm a very open person. You see, because my knowledge is so difficult, not too many people really come to bother me, except the scammers. Okay, they say I'm so open. They just come to check me out. Sure, I let them come in. Okay, I think this, Chat GPT will be a revolution for scammers. Okay, they can get people, approach you, and they can talk to you as if they are humans, and it can be a complete total mess. I think in science we already know that to invent something constructive is very difficult, but to be destructive, it's very easy. Okay, so ChatGPT, if they really want to put it into action, it would be rather destructive. The author may already say it's more dangerous than the pandemic, and it's more dangerous than the bomb. And what's the use? We have no value judgment for the bomb, no value judge. We really do not know anything about social science. It's about life science, which relate to the pandemic. The pandemic was caused by itself, and it cured itself. Okay, put out Omicron, which is the cure for the pandemic, in pole science opinion. Okay, because complete automation relate to life science. If we don't have complete automation, we don't have life science. In complete automation, our words is self-generating, which is more dangerous than the generative. Okay, we are self-generating. I can send you a software, and you just run it, and it would fill up your disk. Okay, generate one cell, software cell, another software cell fill up your disk. Okay, the way to use this is to build the electronic brain. Okay, then you have unlimited number of software cells. Okay, today they use human manually create cells, so they have all this neural network. Okay, neural network started when I was born. Okay, 1943, and they got two teams. One team is in biology. They find that neurons are like a neural network. Another team actually produced something. Okay, then Minsky came out and built some machine. Then he caused the AI winter. And then today, people who understand AI, they don't really think Chat GPT belong to AI. Okay, this is a big question. Okay, it's just a translator. Okay, generative translator. Okay, this is very dangerous. Just like you suppose today we allow all the dogs, that give all the dogs the ability to talk. And these dogs, they don't have much self-control. They just come in and talk, and this it can be so noisy. They just take over all the communication channel. Okay, they bark. They bark already. If their barking is understandable, it can be rather troublesome. So people going to Chat GPT, they have to be rather careful. Okay, and some people, some of my long associates, they already doubt if the Chat GPT can ever make them money. Okay, money is today's money-oriented society, so everybody is looking for to rate of return on short term and the monetary return. So that cause we are post science. We want the valuation is based on short term as well as long term as well as short term, no monetary as well as monetary. So valuation goes to infinity. Okay, it started by mathematicians after the Great Depression. Some mathematicians think they need to go into economics, and now we have mathematical economics, but they didn't solve any problem. They didn't finish any problem. They defined some of the problem, defined particularly serial value. What is value, which is basically supply demand. That's what they use. And also they have game theory. Also Milton Friedman come up with a monetary theory. Now I realize stock market is there you can look at several levels, which Chat GPT eventually will get into. Okay, the highest level in pole science opinion is nature, the laws of nature, which is also supply demand too. Okay, then you come down to game theory, which is John von Neumann. Okay, if you go into stock market, you want to be the stock market, you have to play the game. Okay, it's game theory. Then you come down to Milton Friedman, monetary theory. If the government start to print money, if we're lucky, the money will be absorbed by the stock market, so we can avoid inflation. Okay, we complain about the inflation, but we're lucky because the money being absorbed into the stock market. Because this is United States. Okay, outside the United States, they have 100% inflation in Argentina. Okay, so people don't really understand social science. Okay, the only people who might have some understanding of social science are the people who start the social science, the mathematicians, Kenneth Arrow, Gerald de Boer, John von Neumann, basically. And I have solved a problem for them. Okay, I go into real estate. I look at real estate. I went into stock market. I look at the stock. So I have a rate of return calculator for stock, which is very difficult. It's a double iterative system based on single iteration, which is for real estate. Long time ago, real estate market, the government cannot interfere. The big money cannot interfere with the real estate market because the real estate market is so big. Not one party can control it. Okay, today it's different. Government get into the real estate market. Okay, the government come in and control everything. Okay, used to be stock market used to be controlled by Fidelity and the Vanguard, all these big companies. Today the government is the top guy. They got money flowing, flow out, and the control nations. This is a trade war. Okay, between nations. So things are getting really out of control in science. Okay. I'm the founder of Pole Science. I have 10 mentors who are the leading thinkers, in my opinion, of our time. And none of them is fully accepted by society. So, so I don't expect society to accept me, but I'm getting a little bit smarter. I spend most of the time just having fun, dancing, take care of my body. But on the other hand, people come to approach me. Okay, the first is philosopher, mathematician, and eventually there'll be more and more people. But I need to sort of make this final idea clear. That is, in the future, the world might have to be divided into two groups: the scientific group and the post-science group. Okay, those who are in pole science, they probably have to have some kind of intelligence. Once they understand social science, then we can go in and take care of society with value, with complete automation. With fuzzy logic. We have to start a new foundation. We cannot have this exact logic as the foundation of knowledge. So basically, there will be two groups. I unfortunately the science. I'm a scientist. I'm trained as a plasma physicist. My professor was the most promising plasma physicist, young plasma physicist. I was supposed to be a promising young scientist, and I trained as a scientist. Science deal with 5 variables. Okay. The problem value has 50 variables. The problem of complete automated software has 500 variables. Okay, so now the mathematician struggling with my paper on pole science. Okay, from pole science from the point of view of culture level quotient. Okay, culture is the only problem the world needs to solve. Okay, when we educate some people, we try to raise their cultural level. Okay, you ask people what's the purpose of education. Most people give you all kinds of wide and gaining knowledge, all this thing. Knowledge is not going to be the ultimate thing. Okay, you raise the cultural level. The cultural level for science today is 7. Cultural level for valuation for mathematical rigor, complete mathematical rigor is 6. 1 level above. Okay, 1 level below science is 8. 8 is religion. Okay, people find that somewhat insulting. That religion is next to science, but science is just an extension of religion, where instead of believing in divine laws, you believe in non-viable laws of nature. Okay, so actually practicing scientists, one of my really close friend is Dai Wu, the Chinese father of physics. He has strong belief in laws of nature, so he can think physics. Okay, Richard Feynman, Dai Wu are 2 people I think are the best physical thinkers. But science deals with 5 variables. Social science, you have to go to 50 variables. I guess not too many people can think 50 variables. Also, we solved the problem of robot touch, which requires 25 variables. So scientists the best scientists are Nobel Prize winner, they can probably think 10 variables. 1 new problem, 1 old problem, 5 plus 5. So basically, this is we're going to we have to go into another stage of human intelligence, and we got to solve some of the problem of survival. Survival is when the range of tolerance and the range of possibility overlap. When two sides overlap, then you have a range of, the conjunction of range of tolerance and the range of possibilities with the range of solutions. Okay, today we get the exact solution. We get one solution. That is not the case. Okay, you go to the stock market, you see there's the best estimate, the middle average estimate, the lowest estimate. People are already using fuzzy logic, going up and down, but they don't accept. Only science is exact. Engineers goes for fuzzy phenomenon. So you can never get an exact 12-inch ruler because you got to have plus minus, some error. So basically, this I'm here. I've been here talking a great deal. So from now, I will not be teacher of some student. I will just promote my own ideas. Okay, I want as many people to, if they can do it, they should come to join pole science. Be aware of the existence of pole science. And we are not pushing it, and actually people come to join us. And I think mathematics, they might need us, okay, to make them more relevant. Those smart guys, they solve 3 variable problems and they solve it very deeply, but it's not relevant. And the problem they propose is value, practical, most practical problem. That is great. Okay, we'll just finish what they started. And so valuation, I have all the program for valuation. So a nation like Bangladesh, if they want to, I can give them all the valuation programs so they can start to make rational decisions. That's the first thing. Also, it is the first thing for Chat GPT. Okay, my student advised that we should observe Chat GPT, not to really jump into it, because right now nobody knows where it's going. Okay, all the people who start the Chat GPT, they are actually against it now. Okay, so it's really in a period of turmoil, change, and the change is fuzzy. Okay, so basically, even in the really small scale, quantum mechanics scale, you cannot go suddenly jump from 0 to 1. You have to get into a period, which scientists call it the probability. Probability, they use probability just because it's an analytical expression, so they got wave function. But actually, it just you cannot suddenly change to something. You got to go into a transition state. The transition state is the quantum mechanics state. It's a possibilities. Okay, you can have 0 or you can have 1. Okay, then, you change. Change is necessary fuzzy. So basically, this world has problems. Scientific, dominated by science, has some problems. Okay, also about something about software. I want some country like Bangladesh. If you do Chat GPT, you are following people. I can assure you, Silicon Valley will be leading Chat GPT all the way until it succeed or fail. Okay, people here, they are working day and night, really, and progress very fast. So if you want something successful, you need to start something new. Okay, for example, Taiwan start the microprocessor. They are fabricating. They start fabrication, and this is nobody. Fabrication is the least profitable business. Okay, so nobody wants it, and the Taiwanese say, okay, let's do it, and they have done it for so long. Now they are the world leaders. So my advice, since I'm talking to people in Bangladesh, I would suggest that they do something new. Okay, now one of my suggestions would be, if you want Chat GPT, then I would say complete automated software. Okay, our software self-generating. Another software need to be traced back to the origin. Every word you write, every program coding statement you write, it has to be traced back to the origin. And people need to document every statement. Today that everybody come out and say whatever they want. Okay, who's going to maintain those software? Who's going to update those software? Okay, the updating is infinite. Okay, it's permanent. Today, the complete automated software is a universal permanent software. Okay, so it has a total different nature and different type of thinking. So basically, Chat GPT, we are all discussing the social aspect of Chat GPT because you can look back in the past. I say some technical stuff. So some people give some really good technical presentation of Chat GPT. The most recent is something like DALL-E 2 and also Chat GPT 4 with coding. Okay, so coding, those guys, you can type in text and they would give you a video. Okay, video display. So YouTubers are sort of have competitors, and then many teachers will have competitors. Especially English teacher. Nobody can compete with their grammar capability against ChatGPT. So people need to worry about this, really look at its implications. Okay, so I'm glad people discuss this. I'm glad the audience here are all very broad in their thinking. That's great. Okay, so
Thank you, Mr. Cart.
thank you. Yeah.
Well, I think there's going to need for some form of regulation, which is challenging in itself. But we can look back also at the beginning of, cryptocurrencies. When that all started out, that needed and still needs some regulation. That's been going on for, 12 to 15 years? I don't even remember exactly how long. But in the early days of that, cryptocurrency was being used for nefarious uses, just like we're anticipating more of AI being used for nefarious uses. So there needs some controls over that. You probably remember in the early days with crypto, they had the Silk Road, where they were trading all sorts of things, drugs, arms, various things, using cryptocurrency because there was no way to trace it. It was a great medium to do it at the time, And then they caught wind of it, and folks like Charlie Schremer, if you remember him, Charlie Shrem rather, who kind of started the Bitcoin. I'd met him actually early on when I had no idea what Bitcoin was. I wish I bought it that day when he was hawking it because it was probably a couple bucks, And then he eventually went to jail and then moved to Florida, and he has a podcast now. He was in and out of jail, but he facilitated the Silk Road. Unbeknownst to him, he ended up having to take the fall for it. But, my biggest concern with AI is the nefarious uses, and we've seen it already, and how governments, and this is an international thing, how governments can control it. It's going to be very, very challenging. I certainly don't know the answer to that.
Well, Marco, I agree completely that I always think like Professor Cheng told us, the scammers are going to be delighted. The people that are going to abuse it are going to be ahead of any regulations. And, I always go back to it's the wild, wild west, where the law and order was something that came later. It was the people that had the firearms that made the laws. And, so we're going through that transition as a society, but beyond the nefarious thing, I also think that there's something to worry about in terms of how does this affect society? Is it going to make society more just, or is it going to make it less just? And these are the types of values that Professor Cheng was talking about. And how do we value them? How do we quantify them? How do we assign their number to them? I don't know. But I do know that it also affects people in their day-to-day lives. Like my example with the internet, we had productivity in workplaces for about a decade following 1995. And then after that, we noticed that the people were getting distracted. And, we don't really do two things at once. We do things one at a time. But when we're going back and forth between things and we're distracted, we have 3 windows open and we're going to open another tab, we're not as productive. And that is something that I also am concerned about, as I am also concerned about the conformity, it's not unity, it's uniformity. It's not like we're all in this, same world working together. It's like we're all trying to be thinking the same things because we're told what to value. And this is another danger. And there's nothing nefarious about it. It's just what it happens when you introduce something like this. So I think we're in a societal change, and we have to have values leading the way. And until we agree on those, all of these different opinions about how it's going to be implemented or regulated seem to be the cart before the horse. Thank you.
Well, along the lines of values, I think that's a real social issue because so many different people have different values. I mean, look what's gone on in the United States over the last 8 years. We're so divided. And, I have friends on both sides of the aisle, and they're adamant about their thoughts about how they feel things should be. So to develop a value system for AI, I'm not sure how to do that when you have so many different societies around the world that take on the world differently than one another.
Well, Malcolm, how about start with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Can we all agree on that?
Well, in the United States, yeah, but there are plenty of cultures that don't think that way, and they're stuck in their old, middle-aged way of living, and there's been repeated attempts to change those cultures. And
as you point out, even in the United States, I live in the divided states of America. I don't live in the United States of America. It's one state pitted against another. So, we have a lot to work on before we can talk about. But I think we have a global economy, and we have to start thinking like a global, mankind, a global humanity, and the global economy is leading the way where we have to do trade with one another. But why not share values with one another as well? Why not talk openly about what we all want, which is to not only to survive, but to survive with dignity. And this is the thing that I think is the essential thing we can agree on. We don't want people in chains. We don't want people exploiting other people, but we see it all the time in all the world. But what we can do is get consensus about some things that we all agree on. And this can be woven in when we start to talk about, Chat GPT or whatever that comes next. When we agree on those things, then we can maybe make some progress in uniting our world. So we're all in this world together.
Very tricky, and I think playing devil's advocate, I think there are people on the other side of this fence who visualize Americans as imperialists still, and trying to come across and say, hey, we're doing this for everybody, but they may not see it that way. So it's very challenging to do it on a global basis.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Cart. What you want to share about this blockchain technologies and how it helps for our
I
business
just have
process?
kind of a couple thoughts on Chat GPT. The first is just I haven't played around with it as much as I would like, but I think it's the most important skill going forward is knowing how to ask questions and a variety of questions to get different answers back from it. And the other thing that I've been thinking about as we've gone off on kind of a lot of interesting topics is the one thing I worry about with ChatGPT is it gives you this short, concise answer. It's a summary. And you kind of don't get that when you're doing research. You're looking at much more in-depth, much more details. And you might be in search of a question, but in search of that question, you find answers to better questions. And so I worry about relying upon Chat GPT, as perhaps maybe like a younger person or a student that they could become too reliant on it. We can keep talking about these pros and cons. The pro is you can get the answer you want to a certain question, and it's concise and it's exactly what you wanted, or it gets much closer. It gives you what you want quickly, as opposed to more of the process of research where you go out with a question and you really can come up with new knowledge. And so I worry about the future younger generation relying too much. Like I see them relying too much on the internet, and not, I myself am upset that I don't read as many books or novels as I used to, that I'm on these short articles again and again and again, because it's nice to read the short articles because they have the newest information, but they lack that depth, and you're only going to get that by really delving into a subject matter on a broad scale. And so it just, I'd like to tamp down some of the hype of Chat GTP and really just, it's a tool, it's a limited tool, and it'll be interesting to see how it improves over time, but it's really a limited tool at this point, as I see it.
Thank you. Mr. Markley, what you want to discuss about Chat GPT?
Well, I've used Chat GPT as well. I've definitely used it on a couple of projects. I've even had a friend of mine that wrote an entire funk song on using that tool and all of that, because they were working with my good friend Zach, and they were actually in that AI space. So they actually recorded a song using that, and Tony Cam was involved in that as well. So I've seen it used on a number of things, whether it be music, whether it be plays, whether it be even, I'm not too convinced, and Jim may have some thoughts about this, that some of our political candidates might not be using it for their political speeches and all along those lines, because it was probably writing a better speech than even their speech writers would write, and maybe even is giving them some better talking points. But I do sometimes, and I think I heard Kurt alluding to that earlier, worry about some of the biases that exist with it, because there are definitely some things that have already been proven about some of the biases that exist around sexuality and gender bias, as well as race bias and even cultural biases. So that is one of the things that I am concerned about, because we know at the end of the day, it is humans that are writing these programs, and they sometimes will have that bias already ingrained. I think that I've mentioned a couple of times that I work for a number of companies, and one of the companies I work for is a measurement company in terms of grading and end of the year testing, all in that space. And I do know that that is something that we as humans have to be aware of, is our own bias, and try to guard against that. But we are even sometimes going up against AI and some of the computers as well. But they do know that those that human element has to be accounted for, and that's why they sometimes have us going up literally against the computers, because they know that as of now, some of the computers don't have that nuance that others do in that space. So that is something that we have to be cautious about and aware about as we continue to develop these programs and all in that kind of space. But definitely, I've heard a lot of folks that have been using it in a lot of different lanes, and I do hear that Spectral is asking about the blockchain and the blockchain aspect of things. And I do know that there are some folks that are even using it in the sense of how they are investing in crypto and things in that space. So that is something that we need to be concerned about and to be addressing as well. So I don't know if folks have thought about that or addressed that on this particular discussion, but that is something that is of a concern to me and all along those lines, because I definitely see it. It can be a powerful tool. As a matter of fact, I was on a show earlier today, and they were talking about YouTube and Google University and how everybody can go to YouTube and Google University, and as Kurt was saying earlier, get those short answers and get those answers that they want. But I sometimes wonder about the accuracy of those universities, because, for example, I literally could go on YouTube today and create a post that said that Jim Eads was secretly Catherine the Great, and there would be nobody that could stop me from putting that out there. Or I could put out something that said that Kurt was secretly Hillary Clinton, and there would be nobody that could actually not prove that statement because there is not enough of the verification system as well. As a matter of fact, I think I'm gonna go out there later on today and let everybody know that Sharif is secretly and unbeknownst to everybody else on this panel, Kamala Harris. But y'all did not know that, but y'all actually
No, Mark. Oh no, you're going to prompt all sorts of things. But Mark, you gave me the word that I was looking for is bias, and we can program confirmation bias into these things, and that's something that I am worried about, and I share your concern about. And also, we were talking a little bit about like people being afraid of American bias and American, dictating these things. Well, why don't, as Professor Ching suggested, why doesn't this come from Bangladesh? Why does it have to start from America? Why doesn't it start in someplace else? And then we can contribute to it. This is what I mean. We were so much talk about capitalism, and there's another C word. It's called cooperation. We can do that as well. I do think it's a wonderful resource for people who know what they're looking for and have the discretion. And so I don't want to sound like I'm against it. It's progress. It's happening. We're going to have to figure it out. But I do think that there are things that we must be aware of. And we must put values on the top of the decision-making tree. And further down is capitalization, monetization, that sort of thing. But we're flipped as a society, and monetization is at the top. And I think we're always going to make mistakes if that's the way we approach these problem-solving techniques.
And Jim, you bring an interesting point in there. And by the way, don't worry, Marco and you. I figured I was going to get y'all on the YouTube as well because we know that Marco is secretly Nefertiti, and we know that you is secretly Confucius and all in that space. So we do know that is going on. So I didn't want to think that I was going to leave y'all out and everything. But one of the things that you brought up, Jim, that is a very valid point, and all along those lines, is that a lot of the inventions that we are very much proud of came from other cultures. I mean, think about the fact of the stoplight being from the African American culture, and a lot of people, when they are stopped, don't think about that. But there are also a lot of inventions that we use on a regular basis that did come from quote unquote developed worlds and all in that space, but we don't give them enough credit for the great work that they have done. I mean, how many of us would really know about irrigation if it had not been for some of the work that was done there in Latin America, in the Aztec and Inca cultures and all in that space, and even the way that the pyramids were constructed there in Africa, and a number of other things that we are still trying to figure out to this day. So while I am a big fan of advances in technology and a lot of positive things that are being done, there are advances that are taking place in other parts of the world, and they have been not just now, but historically, and we need to acknowledge those and also continue to encourage folks, whether it be in Bangladesh, whether it be in Malaysia, whether it be in Sierra Leone, or whether it be in a number of other countries that I could name as well. And there are some great innovators, because that is another word that we oftentimes talk about here, that are doing amazing work, and we need to find ways to encourage them and not think that it always has to be a westernized thing or even a thing from the quote unquote superpowers, even though we know some of those superpowers are losing their superpower status, particularly when they're going in and invading neighboring countries and all in that space. But hey, haven't we been doing that also in just America and the world? Because that's that whole notion of imperialism, and imperialism is a very real thing even in this modern day time. But that doesn't mean that we don't need to encourage folks to continue to develop and develop from all parts of the world.
Thank you. Mr. Cart, what's your concluding remarks for today's session? Mr. Cart.
Sorry, it always takes me a while there to reach my mute button. Yeah, I don't know. I've kind of said what I've had to say on the subject, just somebody who's just kind of played around with it. Yeah, I'm just kind of interested to see what other people have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. James, what's your concluding remarks for today?
Well, Mike, thank you for the opportunity to have concluding remarks, and thank you for hosting this show, Sharif. I really appreciate your invitation to be on. And I do think I loved what I heard from Professor Chang about post-science, and I do believe that we are living in a world of change, and the change is accelerating. It's almost like a hockey stick that goes this way and is now going that way. And the change that we used to have, like a grandfather could teach a grandson pretty much the same, and that lived in the same worlds. And that's not true anymore. And it's changing right in front of our eyes. And so one of these effects that it's having on change is that we're no longer able to teach the same things that were taught. And so now the things that are surfacing as far as our instrument, we don't know what to trust. And the breakdown of trust is one of the things that is hampering our society as a whole. And I think that before we can automate software to be a boon to mankind, we need to restore trust. And that is a big ask. Thank you, though, Sharif.
Thank you. Mr. Mark Elman. Mark, what's your concluding remarks for today?
Well, what I'm most concerned with, really from a personal level and from observing people around me, is the effect AI is going to have on industry, which it's already having very, very rapidly. This is as nascent as this technology is. It's evident that the likes of BuzzFeed, which is a source for news for many people, I don't use it personally, has laid off numerous people, and it's gone right out there and said, yeah, we're generating news articles using AI. But that, and that goes a step further. I mean, we spoke earlier about the law situation. There are definitely going to be professions, and we're going to see a significant amount of change in our economy in the United States and across globally as to certain jobs that will simply disappear because of both AI and robotics. And what's most important is people that are younger, coming, in high school, college, or even in their 20s and 30s. And I know that professionally, I did the same thing. You always got to be, having a rear view mirror and looking what's coming up behind you to eat your lunch. Because if you don't, and we've seen this repeatedly over the decades, where we've seen our parents or other folks' parents all of a sudden lose their jobs because some sort of technological twist, and companies are merged, so there's no need for their services because the acquiring company has someone basically doing it, and they can get it all done just as easily and just as quickly. So it's most important in my mind is keeping your eyes open and identifying what areas of employment will remain available to you and what won't as a young adult or even a middle-aged adult, so that you can change with the times, because AI is certainly going to have a dramatic and significant impact on all of that all over the world. And that's my current concerns and takeaway. Thank you, Sharif, for hosting this. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mark. Thank you, Mr. Mark Elman. Professor Ching, in between 1 minute, what's your concluding remarks for today's session?
Yeah, okay. Well, some people, ask, some audience ask if we have what's blockchains, knows all this other stuff. Let me just make this one point about freedom. Okay, this idea of freedom. Okay, freedom is obviously very, very good, very important. You see, and the foundation of freedom. What is the foundation of freedom? What is free will? Okay. I have many people who also talk about this, but I fear that it's kind of difficult to really, be certain about this for nobody. The idea I try to project is this. Okay, from pole science, once we have the solution value, it turns out this is a complete mathematical rigorous system, and this restrict all our behavior. If we eat something, whether it's good or bad for us, we need to calculate the value to infinity. And in other words, it seems like there's no freedom. Okay. In science, it's quite clear. There's no freedom. Okay. Every object moves according laws of nature in physics. But in social science, we also see there's no freedom. But what where does free will come from? Free will, in my opinion, which is my opinion, I wish you all help me think about this. The freedom comes from fuzzy logic, from range of tolerance. If you build a robot, you do not give it range of tolerance, it's not free. Okay. If you give it range of tolerance, how much you give it, it will have this much freedom. Okay, freedom is good. Freedom allows us to change and to allow us to progress. So all this thing about blockchain, blockchain and the cryptocurrency, it's really government. You see, the United States formed based on no government. It just saw the French Revolution. It says that there are no more kings, and we don't even want other people to rule us. We want freedom. Okay, but do we really have freedom? We really, it seems to me, it's a pole science view. Is we have no freedom except whatever we build it, whatever is built into the range of tolerance. Then we have freedom. Okay, and the government about this cryptocurrency, because people ask questions, let's answer this. We say the government controls money printing. Okay, that's a very important. That means the private citizens have no freedom in printing money. Okay, it's a restriction, and this Bitcoin server shows that the monopoly of the government is not certainty, and also that the reason that it's crypto and also it distributes its chain the blockchain system is to avoid the government. Okay, once they avoid the government, then people can come up with all kinds of crimes. And even today, it's driven by both criminals and also big money people who already have so much money. The last thing they want to overcome is government control. Okay, so all these very rich people, they invest, they support the cryptocurrency. I would say this is a good idea. Let's have this opportunity for citizens to print money. And actually myself, I'm trying to print this universal permanent money. And it's very deep. My money is different from all this other money. It's very deep. It says the integers minus infinity to plus infinity, they have value. Okay. For example, ISBN book number. Okay, you pay $150 for a book number. Okay, it has value. Okay, but it's not universal because it only applies to book. Okay, my number applies to everything. Once you get one number, that's it. Nobody else will have that number. Okay, that number is very good for users' money. Okay, today United States has this dollar international currency. Once the dollar is used as international currency, United States can no longer devalue its currency. So it got stuck. Okay, country like Bangladesh need to understand this. You as a small country, you should go take advantage of the United States. Okay, United States finally with Trump, started flexing muscle as the new world. The United States, the new world. Okay, it has the best political system, most advanced political system, but the pole science really have lots of criticism of such a system. First of all, it's a legal system. Today, politicians control the legal system. They do anything they want. And the human being, we are against pole science against man-made laws. Okay, man-made laws will come into conflict with laws of nature. Okay, so solution value is really shows people that mathematics controls the human behavior. not man-made laws. So United States has many things that we can improve. So James or suggest something. Go to start a new country. Go to Bangladesh. Okay, so Bangladesh take notice. And another place I'm working on is Taiwan. See, Taiwan is under two superpower. Okay, people are really, nobody, no government. It's really a place where there's no government. You can say anything you want. Okay, because the government actually is under control by either China or US. Yeah, it's really a free place. Okay, so the government is so weak that the people can afford to have a lot of freedom, and that place probably should be a place to James suggests to get new things started. You have something you want to do. You want to do cloning, human cloning. Go to Taiwan. You know, you have to do some real currency like me. I can go over there and say, okay, you guys start to use my currency. Okay, so
Thank you, Mr. Ching.
yeah,
Thank
there,
you.
okay,
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Martley, what's your concluding remarks?
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Mr. Martley.
Yeah, glad to hear this conversation, a very powerful conversation, and some very valid, interesting points were raised and all in that space. But one thing Jim was talking about the nature, and I think some other gentleman was about the jobs that could be lost and all along those lines. And if I'm correct, I don't think they've ended it. There is a major strike that is going on where Jim is, and part of the reason for the strike is because they want better money and they want better say so, but they also want some of that freedom and control, because part of the argument that I am hearing from the writers, and you can correct me if I am wrong, but part of what they are concerned about is the nature of Chat GPT and how that could actually take away a lot of writers' jobs, because a lot of writers are afraid that those entire lovely blockbuster scripts could literally be written by other folks other than themselves, and they would like to have some of that creative control maintained and all along those lines. And I actually heard an interesting comment that Spectral made earlier in the comments and all along those lines, and that was the notion of maybe AI could replace our politicians. And one of the things that was crossing my mind as she was saying that, and even before she said that, was how many of us are going out and voting on a regular basis. And it comes back to what Mr. Ching was talking about with freedom, and we are voting according to what our PACs or our interest groups have told us to vote, and all in that space, because I know that there are probably a large portion of our populations, both here and worldwide, that vote according to what they have been kind of dictated to vote, because they have been given kind of a sheet, whether that was from the Sierra Club or whether that was from a PAC. And a lot of people vote straight tickets that way without necessarily studying the issues. And if that's the case, we could definitely have AI do that, because AI could just dictate who our candidates and our presidents would be, and they might do a better job. But I'm not willing to give up on the American or even the world population of people in terms of them having some say so in that kind of regards. Because if that was the case, we just have go AI make all the votes for each of us individually, and who knows, it might do a better job. But I still have faith and ability in the human spirit and the human ability to actually study the issues. I just wish that we did it a little bit more regularly and all in that kind of space. And the other things that Spectral mentioned, which I also think is a very important issue to deal with, is intentional community. And I think Jim alluded to that earlier, and we definitely need to create these intentional communities, but we also need to work on listening, not just to the elderly voices or the middle-aged voices like all of us here on this panel, except for maybe Kurt might be a little bit on the younger side and all in that space, but we also need to listen to the Gen Zs, the Gen Xs, and a number of other folks that are younger than us, but still have a lot of, excuse me, useful wisdom. Because I do think that we don't do a good enough job worldwide of listening to the generational conversation that goes on. So I think that we need to learn from the elders, but also learn from some of those that are younger, because they may bring a fresh perspective on some of these issues that we are not always thinking about. So I try to keep the company of some young people around me, and I definitely enjoy hearing some of their comments and some of the insights that they give that may give a fresh perspective to the ways that we think and all in that kind of line. So that's some of the things that I was thinking about as Mr. Ching and Jim and a number of others were talking, because we definitely have to maintain these conversations, even trying to figure out what is going on in the spaces of some of these newer conversations too, because I've actually got some friends that are in the crypto space, and I have not done enough research to figure out if it's something that I want to dabble in or not. But some of them are not the millionaires or the rich folks, but they are folks that are frustrated by some of the powers that be, whether that be banking or whether that be government. There's a reason that they call it one of the decentralization tools, because they are trying to find ways to break up the system that they have found to be a little bit repressive in some cases as well. So I think that that is the personal appeal from what I have talked to friends of mine around crypto and around some of the blockchain things, because they are frustrated by the big business and the big government and some of the other things that you alluded to, Mr. Ching. And that is why they are going into that field, because they are trying to find a disruptive space. And we have definitely seen disruptors throughout history. We saw that with Vietnam. We saw that with the 60s. We saw that with the Harlem Renaissance. We've seen it with a number of times in history where folks are wanting to disrupt a system that they feel is not being fair to them. And that is a conversation that needs to be had on a worldwide level as well. So that is one of the things that I would add to the conversation as well.
Thank you, everyone. This is very interesting discussion. Definitely, Chat GPT is a very important technology right now. Everybody utilizing these things. And besides that, I request our audience, those who are youth, those who are students of different universities, I believe for academic purpose, we should not use Chat GPT. Because yeah, in some point we can learn different things, but if you develop your assignment, your thesis through Chat GPT, it become a very problematic for your future progress. So definitely, I request all of our audience, our students, our young community, yeah, through this process you can learn, but definitely you should not use it for your academic improvement. Thank you, Mr. Card. Thank you, Mr. James. Thank you, Mr. Mark, and your friends,
Namaste.
Professor Ching and Mr. Markley. Thank you. Bye bye and take care.